All right, a very good afternoon. It's 12 minutes past 2 p.m. It's still the midday show right here on Lagos Talks 91.3. Like I did mention earlier, we're going to be having a very special episode today. In honor of Women's History Month, I will be speaking with a few outstanding women. It's called the Visionary Women series, because I believe the importance of vision is undeniable. I will be speaking with these women to delve into those very pertinent elements that were part of their journey to where they are right now. There's a saying that goes, a person without vision is a person without the future, and inevitably they would keep going back to the past. And I believe that is very symbolic of stagnancy and retrogression. If you don't have a vision, it would always distort your journey. And I believe very heavily in vision. And I want to just take this opportunity to speak with these trailblazers, these game changers, these thought leaders. And this is going to be the very first episode, and I'm super excited about that. So today, my guest, who's sitting next to me beautifully, but if you listen to her profile, I mean, it's a knockout. I will start with this, okay, to do a proper introduction. Her name is Adenike Macaulay. She is a transformational leader with over 13 years experience in the travel industry, widely recognized as a strong voice dedicated to promoting travel to and from Africa, earning her multiple global awards and recognitions. Currently, the Chief Executive Officer for wakanow.com, an online travel agency and travel tech company in Africa. Now, prior to joining Wakanow, she was the first female and first Nigerian to be appointed as General Manager Sales for Lufthansa Group in Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea, where she led the teams in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt and Malabo, driving all commercial and sales activities for Lufthansa Group. She's held various positions across sub-Saharan Africa, overseeing diverse teams as Regional Marketing Manager and Head of Sales, Products and Programs for Lufthansa Group. She's also the immediate past chairperson of the International Air Transport Association Local Customer Advisory Group and, I'm not done, Vice Chair of IATA Agency Program Joint Council. She also holds an MBA from the University of Warwick in the UK, BSc in Systems Engineering from the University of Lagos, and Professional Diploma from the Digital Marketing Institute Ireland, amongst other qualifications. And I could keep going and keep going. And keep going. Good afternoon, Adenike. How's it going?
I'm good. Thank you.
And I'm glad to have you here. And I'm so pumped that you're the first woman. You know, there's something about the first. I feel like it sets the tone for the rest. So
right.
I'm so excited.
I hope I live up to that.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, look at your profile. And I believe this brings me to actually ask you, because there's just so much in this profile that is outstanding. And this is a profile that is very clear that it was earned, right? I mean, these are positions that I know that you cannot occupy without putting the work in.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you, with the little that we've seen from your profile and from what I've said, in your opinion, do you think that you've made it to the top? Do you feel that way?
I think the top is relative.
Okay.
Yeah? The top to me is different from the top to the next person. And then the top today is different from the top tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there's always something more to aspire towards. And I mean, continue to aspire to do more. I mean, my profile is a mouthful, right?
Absolutely.
You would always think,
Look at
CEO now, what next? So, I mean, when I left Lufthansa to join Wakanow, everybody was like, oh, really? Why? You had gotten to the top at Lufthansa, but there's always more. There's always more. So I always say success is relative to your individual aspirations and also general expectations, but there's always more to aspire to.
And I like the fact that you said there's always more, because I wonder sometimes, you know, when you get to a place where people believe that, oh, you've done so much for yourself, you're there already. Do you? And I want to ask you, based on these different feats that you've achieved over the years, do you actually take out time to enjoy there before you move to the other there?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, as human beings, we always try to aspire to do more. And again, if you get into that trap of even comparing yourself to someone else or always constantly chasing something, you would not have the time to sit and appreciate where you are whilst you're on the journey to the next phase.
Yeah.
So it's important for us. I mean, I always have this conversation with my husband all the time when we're discussing dreams and what are we doing next. And we're like, you know what? I mean, we've done pretty well.
Absolutely.
So let's appreciate where we are, but not take our eyes off the next phase and how to get there.
Now, speaking about getting there, I want you to take us down memory lane, okay? And maybe let's start with, and if you can remember clearly, when you were between the ages 10 to 15. If you look back then and you look at where you are right now, are you a clear representation of the little girl that you were in that time? So just take us back there. Are you is this the Adenike that was 10 to 15 with, you know, the dreams and the hopes and the aspirations that you might have had at that age?
Okay, 10 to 15 is a broad.
It's quite broad, I know.
It's quite broad. So within that space, there was a time when I wanted to be a nurse. Because I like the superpowers of holding the needle.
Fantastic.
And then between that time, there was a time I wanted to be a computer engineer. So there are a lot of phases between 10 and 15. But I think one thing that people that knew me whilst I was in primary and secondary school would always say, oh, Nike was a bookworm.
Yeah.
Nike was one of those ethical students that would sit in front of the class.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not atypical to, I would say, my foundational years and the drive I even had as a student.
Yes.
So, again, it's not atypical, but at the same time, there's always more.
Yes.
Like I see, I always tell my team in the office every time, there is always more. There is always a next step. But again, you have to paint the vision for what you want to achieve, where you want to get to. And once you get there, don't stop, because there's always more.
I like that. And just speaking about there being always more, for you to even get to a place where you know, take a breather and say, wow, I've achieved a lot. Dare I say that there was once upon a time that you had a clear vision about where you wanted to be. And I want to see what that vision was from your perspective. Was there ever a time in your life where you felt like, you know, this is where I wanted to go, or this is where I want to go? At the time, did you even know that was you having a vision for your life?
Honestly, I would say the one vision I always had for my life was to be independent.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever it took for me to get there, I was going to do it.
Absolutely.
One thing I always say is, wherever you are and where you want to get to, do something called the gap analysis. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you need to do to close that gap between where you are and where you want to get to? That's what will begin to define what you need to do. Those little steps that you need to take every day to inch you closer to where you need to get to. So yeah, I mean, I would say that my vision for my life is evolving. Yeah, I always have something I aspire to, but like I say, there's always, I would not say moving the goalpost. So when you get there has to be more, right? But it's important to take some time to also document. I think the first time I really documented a vision for my career was when I was applying for my MBA, interestingly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say up until then, I mean, that was one time I kind of took a stop and then looked back, looked at where I was at that point, and then looked at what I wanted to do in the next couple of years. I mean, you get those standard questions when you're applying for your MBA.
Absolutely.
What are your long-term vision, short-term goals, 2 to 5 years? So that was one where I actually had to sit down and document and really think about my journey so far, and then document why I was actually going for an MBA, what I wanted to get out of it. And it was really, really instrumental in me ensuring that what I wanted to achieve by actually going for that MBA was clear. And in hindsight, I mean, it's interesting because that's the first time I actually really documented my dream.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of it and I'm like, oh, tick, 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 tick. That's great. So it's important that, yes, we write down our goals, we write down our visions, we define our visions, but it's more important to do that analysis to know what do I need to do to get there. So yeah, I think that was one time. That was in I started my MBA in 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was when I really sat down and, you know, took stock of my life so far and say, okay, now from here on, what next? What do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? And it's really been interesting going back to that application and seeing the things that, have evolved and seeing the things that, have ticked off that checkbox.
So have you, if you take a look at it, do you have more ticks than not?
I have some ticks. I have some that have evolved. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. So some have evolved. Some I've actually ticked. So one of the key things that I wrote down when I was applying for that MBA was my last position before I joined Wakana, which was general manager for Lufthansa. I was the first female, first Nigerian, first African in that role.
Wow.
I wrote it down clearly. Yeah, that I know this position is going to be available in 6 months. I know that it's never been done that a Nigerian or woman actually gets that position, but I am taking the time and the effort to build myself, to pre-invest in myself to be ready for this position. And I wrote it down clearly there, and the position came, I applied, prepared, I was ready.
You were ready.
I was ready.
And I like the fact that you say that so confidently. I want to know, how did you know what was necessary to make you stand out amongst the others who pursued that particular position? Because I know that there are people who are listening right now and they know where exactly they want to be. But then, when it comes to educating yourself, there are several platforms out there that get you, the same education or the same information that every other counterpart of yours has access to. So how did you know exactly what you needed to cause you to stand out for that position?
There is always someone that most of the time, 90% of the time, there's someone who has done that thing that you're aspiring to do or you're intending to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not, you do not have to go create a certain profile of someone that you want to, or a position that you want to attain.
Yes.
Because there's someone there before, or there's someone that has done it similarly in another organization. It was easy for me to go look at the profiles of the people that were in that role already and say, hey, where am I today? This is where I want to be.
Okay.
What is the gap? That's one of the reasons why I said, you know what, I'm going to go for my MBA. Typically, if you're applying for roles, there's a standard skill set. So that's given. But over and above that, going to actually scope people that have walked the path that you want to walk, and understand what their journey was like, understand what their profile is like today, and start to build yourself. And again, I always say YouTube is the repository of free knowledge. A lot of people will say, hey, I cannot afford an MBA. I see that the person, it's the knowledge that counts. But sometimes, of course, you need documented evidence of knowledge. That's why you have certificates. At the end of the day, it's what you do with the knowledge that you gain from school that counts, and your ability to actually demonstrate that at an interview. That is what will determine whether you even get the role or not. So again, if you are trying to understand where do I want to get to and what do I need to do to get there, simply go scope out people that have done it. People have walked the path before you.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I like the fact that you've said that, because, and thanks to social media as well, we have access to some of these people. Absolutely. So aside seeing how beautiful their lives are, there's so much more that we can learn from them. And that's the reason why I think it's very important that these conversations are being had, because when we take a look at the quality of individuals that we're training or we're grooming, I feel like one area is the area of role models, people that they can actually see and they can tell, okay, this is what this person did to get here, and so if she can do it, then I can do it as well. Now, you have mentioned one very key element, talking about developing yourself and you being able to identify, where am I right now? What's that gap? What are the things that I need to, achieve or develop myself in that will make me, right for that position. I want to know, because, when you were speaking, you made reference to your team. And I know that, a lot of times when it comes to jobs and roles like yours, it does take a village. It takes a formidable team. Absolutely. Now, aside from your team at work, let's talk about the teams that you've had around you growing up, right? Because, sometimes when we see captains of industries, one thing that people like to look at is, what was their background? Did they, grow up in homes or families that at least they were a bit well off, that they could afford, a certain level of education, they could afford a certain level of, association with the right people that will lead them here. So I want to know, from your experience and what your background was like, in terms of the teams, would you say that you grew up in an environment where it was inevitable success? You need to be a very successful person if you are born into this family, if I had access to such and such.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm the last of 4 girls.
Okay.
So I grew up in a family where my older ones, they set the bar a bit high.
Fantastic.
So I was always, I would not say trying to catch up, but I grew up not knowing failure as an option. I grew up knowing that if you put your best effort in, you will get the best result. Now, the best result does not absolutely mean that it's 100%, but it's the best that you could do with your abilities. So I grew up with 3 older sisters, doctor, accountant, engineer. So the path was a bit clear. The path to success that was inevitable was a bit clear. And I mean, I was fortunate to have older ones that, of course, were available to guide me, and my parents as well, available to guide me. But I mean, it didn't mean that there were no struggles. Also having to always live up to a certain expectation.
Absolutely.
It's a lot. I mean, I remember sometimes growing up, I remember specifically when I was in JSS 3. I told my mom I want to go to boarding school, and all my friends were in boarding school. And she was like, "Okay, go. That's fine." And then my first time that I came back, and I think I was 4th. Yeah, I was used to be in 1st or 2nd, and I was like, "Oh." And I remember being so almost scared to go back and say I was 4th.
Wow.
So now I look at it in hindsight, I'm like, being 4th out of, I went to Nigeria, and I didn't go to a school where we were only 10 in the class, So being 4th out of, a bunch of people was pretty good.
Absolutely.
But it meant that I was, growing up in that environment meant that I was overly ambitious, and I was almost scared to fail. Yeah, and I mean, I've carried it, of course, the good part of it.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, nobody wants to fail. But,
absolutely.
I mean, you don't want to also beat yourself up as long as you're sure that you're putting your best effort.
Yes.
So, yeah, growing up, my dad was also in aviation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, my dad was the first flight engineer in Nigeria. He retired as chief flight engineer of Nigeria.
That is amazing.
So I grew up in travel. So some people think, I followed my dad's path and all of this. No, I found myself in travel. But I grew up in a family where there were no barriers. Yeah,
okay.
It was more aspire, we would support you. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon, neither did I grow up with no spoon.
Yes.
At all. I grew up trying to make the best out of what we had. Yeah, there were struggles, but I always saw opportunities because that's what, my background and my family always made us see. There's always something to aspire to, and then we will give you what you need to be great.
I love what you just said, and it just made me so excited because you said that you always saw opportunities. How are people able to discern what the right opportunity is?
At the end of the day, you have to know what it is you want for yourself. And the key in what you ask is the right opportunity. The right opportunity. There are multiple opportunities in this life that will be thrown at you, but if you do not have a direction of what you want to achieve, if you do not have a clear, and again, it's okay to actually test the waters.
Okay.
I always tell young graduates that I mentor that the first 2 years in your career, you should actually test the waters. That's how I found myself in travel. I'm a systems engineer.
Wow, a systems engineer.
Yeah. But, I found myself in my first role in travel was in Lufthansa Group, and I found myself there from just testing the waters. I was working in IT, of course, the standard path for the systems engineer. And I just felt that wasn't it, at that point. This was a couple of months after NYSC. I was a research and strategy analyst with an IT firm. And I was like, okay, I'm not fulfilled.
Yes.
There should be more. And I just saw a role, business analyst, Lufthansa. I was like, okay, I don't know. I actually went to Google, what do business analysts do? What are the tools that they use? And I went and I practiced, pivot tables, which was the first tool that was highlighted as the standard tool for business analysts. And I went I got the job. I believe I did well in the interview because
absolutely.
And I got there and I was like, okay, so what do I do with this with this role? So yeah, it's understanding where you want to get to, what you need to do to get there, and put in the work.
You see, it's interesting that you said that, right? Because I know that there are people, and there's like an argument, right? A debate about this, I would say this method, right? Faking it till you make it. Let's put it that way,
We're
right?
doing it. Trust me.
You see?
Yeah.
So like, you know, when you see a job opening and they're like, we're looking for this, and you don't know all these things, but you go there and you're just like practicing. So I want to know, because there are people who are scared to do that because they're wondering what if they actually give me this job? You know, sometimes you apply and you're just like, you're not really sure if they're gonna give you the job, but then you're just like, let me try it out. So there are people that might be scared, like, what if they now actually give me this job and they're like, oh, you start tomorrow? Like, where do I even?
That's where I found myself. Right? That's actually where I found myself, and I think that's what ignited the drive in me, because I'm like, okay, I'm here now. I have to make you work.
Wow.
Right. So again, I would not say fake it till you make it. I would say do it afraid. Yeah, we're all doing that. Yeah, even people that are so-called trained and competent in that field, until you practice, you do not know whether you can actually do the job or not.
That's true.
So at the end of the day, everyone has to put in a certain level of effort to deliver on a job. Yours would just be a bit more because you're coming from. But again, nothing is within anybody's reach as long as you're willing to put in the effort that you need to actually grow on that role. Because everyone grows on the role.
That literally is a quote
on the job.
That's a quote from you. I like that. I think I will. I would definitely use that.
I did it. I've done it multiple times.
Wow.
You know, taking up roles that, I mean, I joined Lufthansa as a business analyst. I knew nothing about it. Yeah. But I got in. Everyone thought I was a guru on pivot tables. But I actually learned it prior to the interview. And I got there. I was like, okay, I'm here now. I have to make it work. And I spent my time building myself. And I became some sort of an expert in pivot tables. I got there. And that's what kind of highlighted my profile as, you know, a smart one, and I landed my next position. It was marketing. Here's me from systems engineering, IT, to business analysis,
and then marketing.
So I've had to do that multiple times. So I'm not saying it from an aspire to perspire point. I'm saying it from actually what I have done, what has worked for me. If you put in the work, if you know what it is that you want to achieve, tunnel vision, eyes off the distractions, put in the work. Nothing.
So I hear a lot of boldness, right, when it comes to your story. And I'm a believer that we are all a product of our past experiences. We're all a product, you know, whether it's the nature, nurture conversation, you know, are you naturally this way, or is it something that you developed? There are people that right now, if we speak to them and we begin to unpack, we are able to trace their fears to maybe their background or their childhood. And with you having that ability to do it afraid, were you always like that, where you didn't mind just trying it even if you were going to fail? You know, because it takes a lot for you to put yourself out there. You know, a lot of people are scared of the unknown. They're scared of rejection. You know, they are just like, you know, I'd rather not do it than do it and then I'll now fail. Yes. So how were you able to build that confidence and that boldness that you've, you know, expressed throughout your journey?
Honestly, I believe it's just I would say my laser focus, or being more focused on the possibility of success than the possibility of failure.
Wow.
Because, I mean, they're equal. But what is within your control is the effort that you put into it to ensure that you're closer to the top than the bottom.
That is
because if you don't try,
profound.
You never know, right?
You literally just said, right, that the possibility of success, the possibility of failure, they're equal. But make sure you're pushing yourself more towards the possibility of success. That's so outstanding.
And you wouldn't beat yourself up, because of course there are a lot of forces that are beyond your control.
Yes.
That might mean that you will not succeed even though you put in your best effort. So, but as long as you know that you have put in your best effort, you would not come out of that experience thinking that you failed. You will come out of that experience with a learning that you carry on to your next experiment, right?
Wow, that's amazing. In case you are just tuning in and you're thinking, who is that in the studio that is dishing out all these gems? Her name is Adenike Macaulay. She is the CEO of Waka Now, and we are just talking about her journey. This is the Visionary Women series. Now let's talk about you as a boss chick. I really want to know and see things from your perspective, right? Because you're a boss and you have a team that you control. Matter of fact, you're the CEO, so you control all the teams technically. I want to know what it was like for you getting into your first position of leadership.
So my first leadership position was in 2010.
Okay.
This was 6 months after I joined Lufthansa. So I joined as a rookie to travel.
Yeah.
I was still kind of learning the ropes as a business analyst. But like I said, I was putting in the work because I wanted to succeed. Apparently that got me noticed. 6 months I got a promotion to lead the team that I joined. And I always say that this experience was my crash course in leadership, because here I was, a young 25-year-old lady, 6 months in the company. I was saddled with the responsibility to lead a team of much older women that had been in the company 10, 15 years. So you can, and I took over the position from an older man.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you can understand or begin to imagine the weight on my shoulders. First of all, to manage the emotions around leading, being a younger female leader.
Absolutely.
Being relatively new in the organization, but having the responsibility to lead a team with competence that you do not 100% have on paper.
Yes.
Because here I was moving from engineering to business analysis to marketing.
To marketing,
Yeah. And again, this experience has also very much impacted and influenced my own leadership approach, because I always say I hire for not for skill, but I hire for drive.
Okay.
If I see that that drive to actually succeed, the drive to put in the effort that you need to deliver on a certain position or role is actually there, you can train for skill. Yeah, any skill can be learned, but those soft skills, work ethic, drive, you cannot get it. You don't get it easily. So when you see it, you actually grasp it. And again, with hindsight, I see that was what my employers then saw in me, and that was what influenced my my growth. So that experience was my crash course in leadership, because I found myself in a position where I had to constantly prove that I was deserving of the role, whilst still being saddled with the responsibility for the deliverables of the team. So I had to earn their respect whilst I was learning how to lead, learning the skills that I needed on the job. But I mean, I was fortunate to work with an organization that also invested in trainings, invested in building the skills that I needed. Of course, as a marketeer, but as a leader, you have to develop those skills yourself. But again, empathy, that I would say resilience, that, I've gotten this position, I'm going to make it work by all means. But as a leader, it's no longer a one-man show. You have to ensure that you're able to empower your team to work. That's where emotional intelligence and empathy comes into play. So yeah, that was my crash course in leadership, and I believe I managed, because again, I mean, those women, they're my ride or dies today. So I mean, we built something great, and I believe after a couple of months, they were proud that I was the one that was saddled with that responsibility, and it was upwards and onwards from there. But there were rocky times, but we got through it, and then we got to that point of high functioning, and that's what I've carried on to. I mean, my teams. That was the most difficult experience. Every other thing has been pretty much a breeze
through. Wow, so that was a great foundation for you.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that you also did mention, you said they're your ride or die, and of course you developed a great relationship with them. Now, it's interesting. I personally just stepped into a leadership position, and I got to a point where I had to decide, am I going to be their friend or am I going to be their leader, right? And I want to know what it was for you. Was there a moment where you had to make that decision, or was it a situation where you had to marry the two? Because I've had this conversation with people on several occasions, and there are people who say to you, you're not their friend, you're their leader. pick and choose. And there are people who are saying, at the end of the day, with emotional intelligence, with empathy. So I want to know what it was like for you. Did you ever get to the point where you had to be like, what, let's, take a step backwards. I'm their leader. Or how were you able to marry the two?
I would say leadership and friendship are not mutually exclusive. Yeah. If you're not their friend, you're their foe, right? How do you want to bring out the best in someone that does not even think that you have their best interest at heart?
I like that.
So for you to get to the point where you can actually get people to work, you don't necessarily have to be their friend, neither do you have to be their enemy, but they must believe that you have their best interest at heart. And whatever it is that you're driving them to do, albeit sometimes tough when you have to be firm, they understand that it's coming from a place of necessity because they understand the overarching objective of the team. So I say they're not mutually exclusive. Sometimes it's difficult to balance when you have to have tough conversations with people that you were gisting 1 second ago with. I mean, sometimes it's tough, but my people know me that I would laugh with you and gist with you today, and someone is laughing. And the next time you meet something in your inbox while you're gisting with me, like the work has to be done, right? Yeah. But again, it's not mutually exclusive, but we all know what we're trying to achieve, and that's one thing I do not compromise on. Shared vision. I'm not a leader that just directs. I do not want to direct. I want everyone to know this is what we're all trying to achieve, and this is your individual responsibility in driving us towards that goal. So when I say do this, I don't even want to say do this. I want you to know that you have to do this because that is your contribution to what we're trying to achieve. Absolutely. And that's where it becomes a bit easier to balance relationships with your team.
Now, speaking about balance in relationships, let's talk about, the role that you obviously function within as a wife, and you also being a leader of, such an organization.
And a mother.
And a mother.
Three energetic girls.
Can you imagine? So, sometimes when we ask women, and I am a woman, but I don't have kids. I'm married, so I don't really know how to function in that. When people talk about that question, where you're being asked, how do you balance it? There are women who are just like, don't ask me that if you're not going to ask a man that. So first, do you feel offended if you're being asked, how do you balance life as a mother, as a wife, and also as a CEO? Does that ever offend you?
I'm not sure why it would offend me, because there is actually a lot to balance.
There you go.
Except we're trying to deceive ourselves. Yeah. There is a lot to balance. Even without being a mother or a wife, just being a woman, even the things that your body would have to naturally go through every month, our male counterparts don't have to deal with that. They do not have as much downtime as women naturally have, without now layering the time it would take for you to nurture a child.
Exactly.
And not just nurture when the child is still within your womb. Yes. Nurture a child when the child is out. So there is a lot to balance. And what I always say is, this is when, we say in Africa it takes a village. Absolutely. Right? It really, really, really takes a village on both sides. Yeah. I always say I'm not superwoman. I don't try to do it all. I pull on support on the home front when I need to. I pull on support. I ensure that my team in the office as well, they have everything that they need to work as independently as possible. But where the balance comes into play is as long as one is not giving for the other. Sometimes one would have to give for the other, but as long as it's not all the time. And that's what balance is for me. So to achieve that balance, you have to know when you need help. I know when I need help, and I'm super grateful for my team, both in the home front and in the office, because without them, I don't think I'll be able to do half as much as I've achieved so far.
Was there ever a period in your life where you felt like you were stagnant because you had to make this decision of balance between your family life and your career?
So I would not say stagnant. I would say it's understanding the phases of life as a woman and understanding the phase that you're in. Yeah. So I have 3 kids. I had them within the space of 5 years.
Oh wow.
And within and within those 5 years, my career was not stagnant, but I realized that it was a point where I needed to focus a bit on the home front, on nurturing and raising my children. Yes. Yeah. And when I got to the point where my 3rd child was 2 years old, That was in 2018.
Yeah.
That's when I said, okay, so it's time to pull on more support on the home front.
Okay.
And now focus a bit more on my career. That's when I went for my MBA and really started. That's when I felt like I had the time and a bit of the freedom that I needed to do as much as I wanted. Not to say that between the years of 2012 and 2016, when I had my 5 children, not to say that my career was stagnant. I think I changed roles in between, but it was I would not say difficult, but it was not the easiest time because, of course, my body was going through a lot. Hormonal issues when you're pregnant and nursing. So I had to recognize that I was in that phase and did not try to do too much at the same time. It might work differently for others, but for me, I did not try to do too much during that phase. But when I got to the point where I knew, okay, it's time to grind, I really started grinding.
I like that. That's amazing. Now, just taking a deeper dive into the male-female dynamic when it comes to career paths. On your journey, did you see yourself often as the only woman in the room? So
this question, I always say that what you focus on becomes your reality.
Absolutely.
So anytime I'm asked this question is when I actually think, or when I'm asked what you experience as a female leader and challenges and all of that, is when I actually have to think back on possible challenges that I might have experienced. Because for me, I simply focus on the end prize. Focus on the end. What am I here for? What am I trying to achieve? Yes, there might be challenges along the line. Yes, I might find myself. Yes, when I'm asked that question, that's when I think back and I realize that many times I'm the only woman in the room. In my previous role, in my current role, I'm the only woman in the room. I think the travel industry is one, at least on the downstream side now, not aviation, where we are now in the travel booking space, is where you have a lot more female entrepreneurs. So you're less the only woman in the room. But I mean, where I was coming from, yes, I was often the only woman in the room. But I never really focused on those things. Because I did not feel like I was less deserving of my seat on the table, because I was just there as one additional individual who's there to contribute value to that conversation or that discussion or whatever it is that we're all there to do. So I in as much as I understand the focus on inclusion and, diversity and all of that, I always say to break these biases and the glass ceiling, as we say it, you have to, first of all, be deserving of that seat on the table.
I love that.
When we have more and more women who are deserving for that seat on the table, it will become less a discussion whether you won't even be the only woman in the room anymore. So I focus more on ensuring that there is no question of my being there rather than the fact that I'm the only woman there. But yes, I mean, I found myself the only woman in the room many times.
I feel like this, statement just encapsulates what it means to be a visionary woman. It took me years for me to realize that sometimes the setbacks that we might be experiencing, especially when it's something that is within our control, it's attached to having like a vision problem. I've realized that because, and this is somewhat akin to Simon Sinek's The Why. Like your vision is the why. And when you have a laser, focus on that vision, a lot of things that
become distractions.
They become distractions, right? It literally
that
just
do not deserve any energy, and you just focus on navigating around them to get to that end game.
Absolutely, that's so profound. I want to know: do you think that you have gotten more respect in your industry as a woman because you are married and have kids? Do you think so? Do you think if you were a single woman who happened to obviously make your way to the top through your hard work, that you would be as respected as you are right now?
Honestly, I don't know. Yes, is there some respect that comes with carrying the title of Mrs.?
Yeah,
hey, maybe. But like I said, it's the value that you bring to the table that matters, not really your title. Whether you're Mrs. or Miss, if you own your spot on that table, if you own the value that you bring to whatever space that you find yourself, then the fact that you're Miss or Mrs. does not really come to play.
I like that.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't focus on these things. I just focus on why I'm there, and yeah, we go for that.
I love that. I know we have spent a lot of time. My goodness, this is almost an hour. But this is so exciting. But before you go, I also want to know the role of friendships, right? You know, there's a saying that goes, "It's lonely at the top." I personally have my own explanation. But before I give you that explanation, I want to ask you, is it lonely at the top?
It's lonely everywhere, my dear. Not only, not only. It could be lonely everywhere. Yeah. If you're not intentional about building relationships, absolutely, you will find yourself in the gutters and you're lonely.
Absolutely.
So I do not buy into that lonely at the top narrative. It could be lonely everywhere, but it's you making the efforts to ensure that you build relationships, and nurture relationships. I'm saying this, I'm not very good at this. I'm sure a lot of my friends will say, look at you saying it now. But hey, yes, when you're at the top and there is so much that is being demanded of you, that is when you have to be more intentional about like ensuring that you do not find yourself being alone by virtue of you not doing what you need to do to bring people around you.
And you know what? I love this because like it just makes me so happy when you're saying these things. That's literally my own explanation. I feel like it's lonely at the top if you're not intentional about nurturing your friendships. If you're not a good person.
Exactly. You will find yourself lonely wherever
you probably will. Yes, you probably might have yes men around you.
Exactly.
But it will be lonely. Let's take this call because I'm sure there are people who will want to talk to you. All right, so you could give us a call. If you want to ask Adenike a question, please feel free to do that. Hi, good afternoon. What's your name?
Hi, Ife. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is Emmanuel calling from Manchester.
Hi, Emmanuel from Manchester. How's it going?
Hi. Very well, thank you.
All right.
Good afternoon to your guest there.
Adenike. Yeah.
Adenike, yes. It's a huge pleasure. I've been opportune to meet you once. I don't think you can remember.
Right.
I was on the trip to Abuja. I think you were on the plane then, so I said a quick hello to you. But everywhere was just rushing.
Oh.
But I've been following you for a while, madam, and I must say, hearing you fully for the first time is absolutely. I mean, I'm sure of what, you are an inspiration.
Absolutely.
I don't have to be a woman to be inspired by you, madam. I'm highly inspired, and especially because my wife is also a top professional, and this leads me to my question. How does your husband, or how do I put this now? How does your husband key into this, your success? Because someone like me would want to also tap from that inspiration from his side as well, because many spouses, like husbands, don't know how to manage their wives' success, and most times it leads to problems in the long run.
Wow, I like that.
Thanks. I want to know how your husband has been able to manage your success, both in the house and outside the house, and in all ramifications. So that's just my question.
Great question, Iman. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
So interesting question. My husband is the MVP. Shout out to you if you're listening. Everybody that knows me knows my husband is my number one cheerleader.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, we're friends before we got married. In any case, so and before we got married, one thing that was clear was the individual drive that we both brought to the table. My husband, actually, I would say that my husband saw this side of me even before. And he would always say, we would do this, we would do that. And I'd just be looking at him, I'm like, okay, we'll do it. But many times we think back and we're like, we've done most of the things that we said we would achieve. So my husband is successful in his own right, and I think he appreciates the fact that he has a strong woman by his side, knowing that we're raising 3 daughters.
Amazing.
So it's important that we also have that joint examples that we can show to our children that daddy can do it, mommy can do it as well. Yeah, I
love that. And just also referring to yourself as a strong woman on social media, for instance, there's always one debate or the other. It's always a man-woman debate, conversations about that. And with you being such a high flyer, clearly with where you are right now, mentally, you were already, this go-getter. Because I always say you can't have a better life than your mindset. Absolutely. So you clearly already had that type of mindset. So as that type of woman, meeting your husband, were you the type of, oh no, I'm going to pay for my bills? Oh no! I have my own money. Well, are you that type of woman? Were you like that?
I have no challenge with spending my husband's money. You know that.
I love it.
Yes. I have no challenge with that. But I also want us to, and we build together.
I love that.
Yeah, but of course, I like to be spoiled, and he knows that as well. So again. Yes, you're a strong woman, but you're a wife and you have to be submissive to your husband, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not the fact that you're a leader does not mean you should get home and then the boss of the house. Exactly. I mean, we're friends. We have an excellent relationship, but we build together. But I also recognize the fact that I'm a leader in the office.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I have to get home and then still want to be the boss of the house. That's there's a space for a husband. There's a space for the wife. And when I'm at home and I'm in wifey mode.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm in baby girl mode.
Okay.
I'm able to be spoiled, right?
I feel like that is the perfect place to end this conversation. Available to be spoiled. Now, before we wrap this up, Adenike, there is a young girl listening, and I say this symbolic of the women that are listening. Let's give her a name, like maybe Joke. So Joke is listening now, and she's saying, Adenike, I want to be like you when I grow up. Mm-hmm. What would you say to her?
I would say, Joke, you would have to stretch. The ceiling is naturally higher for women. Naturally higher for women. But I always say one thing, that as women, we were naturally built to stretch.
Wow.
Even to have a child, your womb would stretch. To deliver a child, you would go through all sorts of stretches, but we bounce back.
Wow.
Without breaking, yeah? The roof is high, the ceiling is high. You would have to stretch to get there, but you have it in you. Others have done it, others are doing it, others will continue to do it. So do not give up or do not underestimate your capabilities and your ability to stretch to reach that goal that you want to get to. And to women in general, I say, when you by all means stretch and get there, get to the ceiling, as much as it's possible, pull it down. So it's within the reach of the next woman that is stretching, so she doesn't have to stretch as much as you have stretched. But that you can do it, it's in you, because we are naturally built to stretch.
That is fantastic. Oh my God, the phone lines are buzzing. Do apologize, but I would not do them a favor if I don't answer. Lagos Talks, good afternoon. What's your name?
Good afternoon, Ishi.
Good
on the line. Good afternoon, Madam Adenike.
Good afternoon.
I want to ask you a little bit of political question. But before then, how do you keep face on the the streets of Nigeria? Do you keep a smiling face or just face that aside? So
sorry, I'm so sorry, Ebuka. I do not understand a thing of what you just asked. You said, how does she keep a smiley face? Is that what you said?
I mean, how does she keep? Does she have serious face when she's walking in the streets of Lagos and just have something like that?
Okay, are you like a straight face or a smiley face? Is that okay? So it's asking, do you have a serious face when you're walking down the street?
I think it depends on my mood. I don't have one face.
I don't think I saw that question coming.
It is interesting. I typically have a serious face. But when people get to know me, I'm not.
No, but you've been smiling now throughout
you
this
might see me on the
conversation.
street and
let's focus.
When we start chatting, I'm smiling. So it's never one face.
Yeah.
It depends on what my mood is. But I try to smile as much as I can, knowing that I naturally do not smile.
Okay.
A lot.
Okay. All right, let's take this. Hello, Lagos Talks.
Hello.
Hello.
It's interesting that his men.
Yeah, I called back. I don't know, maybe my line went off.
All right, let's hear you.
Okay. So, madam, with the high cost of living in Africa, do you think there is need for organizations to recognize some certifications from all these institutes, not really the conventional certificates?
Ebuka, we can't hear you.
Not really the conventional certificate. I think I got you. You're saying, what do you consider conventional certificates?
Like, say, people that go to university full time, then people that went for online certification,
Right,
okay.
And in Nigeria, not really the one from our Western world, because I know we have some guys that organize this in Nigeria and so. So lastly, and I appreciate the conversation. Looking at accountability and trust, how do you deal with your staff, the people that work with you? Do you trust them, or do you because of the same as messages, accountability and trust of how do you deal with it?
Accountability with your staff. All right, thank you.
The first question was about
the certificates. Yeah.
I would say, it's interesting that you asked that question, because Wakana is a place where we don't really. Honestly, I joined. I'm not sure they asked for my certificates. I'm not sure we asked for anybody's certificates, to be honest.
It's like, if you could do the job,
we get do it. We actually encourage our staff to go to YouTube. Yeah, YouTube, like I said, is a repository for knowledge without you having to pay a dime. You go to YouTube, learn a new skill. By all means, speak to your manager, go to HR. If you know that you have a new skill that you want to test out, you're already within the system, right?
Yes.
By all means, we will give you the opportunity to test that out. And if you do well, you get a role.
Yeah.
So we're not that organization that would say you have to have a 2-1 in this or a BSc from this. No. If you come in and you ace your interview, you can demonstrate that you have the knowledge that we need on that position. By all means, you will get the role. But when we come in, there's one thing that we say is one of our leadership principles: result is everything. If you're able to deliver, by all means, who cares about a paper certificate?
Wow, I love
that. And
then
what was the second question again?
Holding your staff accountable.
Yeah. I think I mentioned that as long as everyone is aligned with a shared vision, they know the part that they have to play. So I don't necessarily want to have to hold you accountable. I want to let you know why you have to do what you need to do.
Absolutely amazing, Adenike. It has been such a pleasure having you here. There's so much that we spoke about, and I can't wait to go and rewatch this video. Yeah. So for those who are listening, maybe you caught this conversation late. We're going to be posting up the video on our YouTube channel at Lagos Talks 913 on YouTube. So check it out. Thank you so much. A pleasure. And like I mentioned, I'm excited that you're the first, because this will set the tone moving forward for this series, the Visionary Women series. And I must say that there's a lot of transformation in the minds of the people that have listened to you. And I like the fact that your story is authentic, right? And it's practical, which is very important, and it's replicable from the things that you have, said to us. So I'm really appreciative that you took out time to share this with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. All right, there you have it. That is the end of episode 1 of the Visionary Women series. And Adenike Macaulay was all sorts of amazing. And her story, I believe, is one of resilience, because you use the word specifically stretch. As a woman, as a person, stretch, and you would be able to bounce back as well. And I like the fact that you mentioned nothing is out of reach. That's what you said. And I think that blew my mind. Nothing is out of reach. And you said, the gap between success and failure is the same, but always push yourself more towards the possibility of success. I believe that is where we're going to wrap up the show today. Thank you so much. Looking forward to another episode of the Visionary Women series. All right. And for those who, I don't know you, because sometimes you might be private, do you mind if people want to reach out to you? Is there a means?
Instagram.
Fantastic.
LinkedIn. Yeah. I think the easiest is LinkedIn. Instagram.
So LinkedIn. Okay. And then Instagram, what's your handle?
Nike83.
So Nike83.
83.
So
at 3.
83. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you.
That's my attempt to hide.
Because I'm just like, what? Oh, my days. Thank you so much, guys. You can reach out to me on Instagram and on Twitter at Ify_I. That is IFY_I. Please do not forget to follow Lagos Talks and just follow up on our Visionary Women series all throughout Women's History Month, which is the month of March. Thank you so much.